what inspired you to create this movie?
Sure. I had seen another movie not that long before I started work on this. And the movie was called Confetti. The director is Anne Hu, and it has to
So
do,
cute.
yeah, it has to do with I forget why it's called Confetti, but anyway, it has to do with a Chinese girl, a little younger than the protagonist in Magnetosphere, who has dyslexia and whose mother
Mhm.
moves to the United States to get her education at a certain place because the Chinese teachers and schools and institutions that she's in are not helping her because they see her as worthless, essentially.
Right, right.
I don't believe in any way that that was a comment on China because although the director is from there, this was based on her daughter's experience and the fight
For
that she
sure.
fought to get her daughter an education. It so happened that they had a tutor who was from the United States. So, there are going to be some people who hear that synopsis and say, oh my God, American imperialism. That is not what it was. It
Right,
was that
right. It's just a
they knew of a
story.
specific, for one thing, it is a story. It's a fictionalized version of a real story, but
Hmm.
same difference. And the story is not really about politics or, international relations so much. I mean, arguably, but really what I was interested in was, from a filmmaking standpoint, was how they showed the world through the point of view of this young girl who
Right,
was 10 years old or whatever. And there would be POV shots that showed, for example, she'd be in her room, or excuse me, she'd be in her classroom, and she would be looking at like a character on the board, Chinese characters on the board, and they would start flipping around, and you would realize like,
right.
oh my gosh, I'm seeing what she's seeing. And it was subtle, it was quiet, it was, all sorts of small things. It was a small movie, but it was, speaking as someone who has set out to make small movies, and that, and really my goal has never been to make a bigger movie. I would be fine to have Greta Gerwig's career, but I didn't set out to have it, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people, another tangent, but I think a lot of people are actually better at their craft when they have less money. Um, I sort of, I can think of a couple examples. I think with Wes Anderson, the more bloated with stars and the longer each movie gets, the with some notable exceptions, Asteroid City and the last one, Phoenician Scheme, um, and still they feel less personal and less like something that you can bond yourself to as a viewer, than back when there were fewer people, back when not that there weren't stars, there always were, but you know back when things felt on a human scale. And anymore it feels like, it begins to feel like if somebody made a shoebox diorama but on $60 million, like why
Yeah,
why
I
would you
get
do,
that. I
I
get that.
I'll still go
When it
see
becomes
everyone.
less about the art and more about the sensationalism or the capital, right? Like and
I mean, don't get
I
me wrong.
think
I
there's
think
space
the
for
art,
all of it.
yeah. And I think, to be fair, I think the art is still paramount in everything that he's doing. It's not mainstream work. It can't be. I don't think he works that way. I don't think his
Right.
writing partners work that way. I don't think his producers are looking at it that way. I think he occupies a niche where here is this guy who would 99% of the time have run under the radar and been a filmmaker who doesn't ever get noticed. But for whatever reason, and throughout whatever series of events, which I know what they were, but it's a long story, um, who was lucky enough to be able to make these sorts of movies. So of course everyone's going to have, $100 million budget with everybody from Tom Hanks to Scarlett
Right.
Johansson
Right.
doing like 3 lines in the movie
Right.
because they want to work with him. Um,
Um, so from seeing confetti, then how did that take me through the journey of from there to Magnetosphere?
um, I it immediately, at that time I still felt that I had uh I still felt that I had a good shot at making one more feature, and I had already made one, which was very, very, very
Hmm.
small, and sort of a practice feature, or if you will, starter feature to sort of,
Right.
you know, get me in shape to do the next one. And really, the skills don't change. It's just that the more you've done, the more
You learn.
obviously people take you if you're a man with money, and I'm neither, but this is hypothetical. So
Right.
I was just realizing what I'm saying is absurd. There's no difference in how I'm perceived now than before I made my first feature, and I've made two. And it doesn't matter.
Right.
What matters is what body parts you have, and you know, if you're connected to people with a lot of money.
Right.
I don't really think it matters too much how good you are or bad you are if at least one of those two things is not in place.
Right.
um it could be just that you come from a lot of family money, and that's great, good for you, but it could simply be that it could simply be that you are an imposing male director with a loud yell, and you make everybody around you on set feel terrible. And
Right.
um
Right.
anyway, I had the notion that doing that my next and potentially last project would be something having to do with not exactly a child, but a young person, a teenager,
Hmm.
who either had some sort of extraordinary ability or who had a learning difference of some sort, and it wasn't clear really which one it would be. Synesthesia is sort of both. It's not exactly a learning difference. It can be one. It can make things more difficult, stimuli and so forth. It can
Right.
overcrowd you in a way that hampers learning, maybe. But I was having this conversation with a friend of mine after seeing that other movie I mentioned, Confetti. We had a long story, We had a long call, long story short, where I was saying it would be, it would be so interesting to do, some sort of film that was based around this idea of whether it's dyslexia or whether it's ADHD or whether it's this or that. And he said, "How about synesthesia?" Because that was something that I had brought up in the past,
Hmm.
synesthesia as being something that was interesting to me, not necessarily as a movie topic, but it's very auditory, it's very visual, so it lends itself very well if people want to take it for what it is.
Right.
And I have seen so far from the reception to it, the critical reception has been 99% glowing. The
Hmm.
audience reception has been probably just under that. Um, so I can't complain about anything.
Hmm.
You rarely get that sort of response. The concerns that I've noticed, the causes for concern that I've noticed, are that if a film appears to be about a child, and way worse, a girl, it appears to be baby stuff, goo goo gaga. I started to get wind of this. So my previous film had to do with a much older teenager who was 19, who was, going out on her own for the first time in the world, losing her virginity, going to college, all this stuff. I
Yep.
still had a girl at the center of it, so it didn't do well. Um, and I don't think it was because of its low production value, because the production value wasn't that low. It was,
Right.
so many favors were called in that it probably looks just a little under Magnetosphere's budget. Um, and reviews were fair to middling on that. I think because, well, you know what? I can't speculate. What I know is that on Magnetosphere, the reception was wonderful, but I have a feeling that if you took everybody who has reacted to it strongly in that way, that you would find that they're almost all ADHD, they're almost all synesthetes, they're almost all on the autism spectrum somewhere.
Right. Right.
I I mean, I know there are people who aren't, but I have my doubts about the truth of that. Um, so who knows? Who can say? I certainly can't say, but I know that it's resonated with people who do experience those kinds of neurodivergences that absolutely doesn't happen when you show it to And I'm not saying that these people don't have neurodivergences, but
Hmm.
now that I've
Hmm.
said that, sales agents, distributors, other kinds of agents, companies both foreign and domestic, anybody who might, film festival directors, film festival panels, anybody who might work, anybody who might see its worth and isn't neurodivergent tends
Hmm.
to not. And when you look at it broken down that way, you sort of start to say, well, yeah, but that means I did what I set out to do.
Right. Right.
Now, it's not just synesthesia in this movie. Synesthesia is sort of the core of this movie, but the core of the movie, the larger core of the movie, with synesthesia as the little nucleus inside, the greater core is it's puberty. It's the whole thing is synesthesia meets puberty. The whole thing is that she's growing up, and with growing up, with all the stuff that comes with growing up, comes also the notion that oh, maybe what I am experiencing is not so normal. Um,
Right.
because I think up until a certain point, we do believe that everything is normal. And here you have a character who is rather shy, rather uncomfortable, rather unwilling to reveal things about herself, even to her parents, even though her parents are obviously totally lovely and would say,
Right.
so what? You know,
Right.
even though her father at least is very clearly shown to be about as neurodivergent as they get. Um,
Totally.
and he in real life does have ADHD. They both do, father and the daughter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there are there's synesthesia among various cast members because it's everywhere. So I'm sure you know.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, in terms of the casting, every single person that I wanted to come on board, every single one who was my first choice, somehow said yes to it.
That's amazing.
I'm
That must have
still
just, what did it feel like to then bring the vision to life with your dream cast?
um, not. It didn't feel like much because you go through that process with such blinders on. I mean, I was happy about it before the
Of
fact,
course.
but that's when you're like, oh yes, thank God this worked. It's not a celebration because it's more of a
Right.
relief because you think that things are not going to work
Right.
out. Uh,
Right.
but it really it just I think the best way to put it is that I became aware of just how long I had been waiting for talented people to say yes to my work. I'm not saying that
Mm.
talented people hadn't prior, but they were
Hmm.
talented people who weren't 40-year veterans of Canadian television.
Right.
And,
Right.
you
Right.
know, um,
Right.
plenty of talented folks I'd worked with on Goodbye Petrushka, which was my first feature, and certainly all the shorts prior to that. I mean, one of the most
Hmm.
talented actors I ever worked with was a little boy 12 years old, who just waltzed into the audition room and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" and just ended up giving the best performance on earth. And I'll never forget him just because he this is back when I was paying people, $100 a day. He was the
Right.
best I'd ever worked with.
Wow.
I don't know if it was 100 a day. Let's say it was 100 a day. Um, it was non-union, and um, you know, so that number probably tracks. It was people doing it for the experience of doing it, and
Totally.
some of them were very, very good. Some of them were non-professional, but still very good.
Yep.
There is a distinction between non-professional and unprofessional, and I had a glowing review of Magnetosphere and the Alliance of Women Film Journalists, which is a really well-respected
Yep.
publication. Yeah, not too long ago, where somebody remarked that it seemed to have been done with a combination of professional and non-professional actors. And I thought, well, unless she doesn't know who Patrick McKenna is, I don't know what we're talking about because
Right.
anyway, I asked, are you referring to the community theater troupe? Because, that makes sense because they really, to say nothing bad about any of them, because they were all
Hmm.
absolute gems, but
Hmm.
they weren't what you would call work. There was a curious little mandate handed down from me to me because I was working up in Northern Ontario, and the folks up in Northern Ontario who were part of the production team held sway once I had signed certain rights away in order to make it in Canada.
Right.
They held sway in ways that I didn't. And there was this mandate, which I understand, but it was in many ways not appropriate for this project.
Right.
That I mean, I think there were, I think they just wished everybody could be from Northern Ontario. Now, nothing against the region of Northern Ontario. It's lovely. It is not
Hmm.
exactly crawling with working actors. So
Sure.
what I had to do, and they really wanted them to be from the town where we were shooting, which was really, there's one or two people there
Right.
in total. No, I don't mean in total.
Right. No, no, I know.
There's one or
Small.
yeah, there are a couple folks. There are a couple I can think of. I don't want to name them by name because then it would be like, oh, and the others will hear this and think I don't mean them.
Right.
But there were there was one or two people who really were worth their salt. And the one who comes to mind first and foremost is Tanya Webb, who's the actress who plays the mother, who unfortunately her part was underwritten because they didn't know who would be playing it until so late in the
Right.
game. So she has one really good scene, and it's toward the end. Um,
Mm.
I wish I could have done better by her. I don't think she minded, but I think she was just happy to be there and working with all.
Yeah.
Long story short, that's I felt grateful and relieved to see these people that I had wanted to work with for many years, namely Colin Mockery and Patrick McKenna,
Hmm.
doing the doing the work that I had set out for them to do. But by that point, I had already been Zoom rehearsing with everybody for quite a while. So I was like, my words are being spoken.
Right.
Kind of over it at that point. Just
Right.
I really just had to keep my head down because it was a um, fraud experience, and um, keep my mind on what needed to be done at all times.